I do what I do.
Context of the Yahtzees, okay? This Yahtzee racial ideology was centered around maintaining Aryan racial purity that targeted the bluish people and the Romani people, okay? And disabled individuals and others believing that these groups threatened the racial purity and biological integrity, okay? They also targeted the behaviors of the LGBT because they said that was incompatible with the vision of a healthy Yahtzee party, okay? And so both Welsing and this model of the Yahtzee ideology, it focused on these perceived threats. So she put forth a great understanding. So now the Yahtzee saw interbreeding and cultural mixing, and shout out to David Johnson, as a threat to racial purity, which aligned conceptually with what Dr. Welsing was trying to explain. And the Yahtzees aimed to eliminate groups. By the way, she studied in Germany. When you listen to one of her broadcasts from back in the day, she studied in Germany for some time. But nevertheless, so she understood that. She went there. But when we apply what she said and we accept this premise that there's a fear of genetic dilution that motivates this, racial oppression, and we see what the Yahtzees did to the bluish people and the Romani people, then it begins to make it even targeting the LGBT group. You see what I'm saying? So that is the premise. This is not something that's new. Now, I'm gonna move on to something. Shout out, I know you guys have contributed to the super chat. Shout out to David Johnson. Thank you, Johnny Harris. I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna read all the super chats when I finish, but it's important. This is a complicated subject, but we need to get this here so that you all can have it in a year, 2 years, 10 years, so you can see and understand what needs to be said. Now, a shout out to all my foundational Black Americans. I'm going to give you all some history that is not often discussed, okay? I'm going to talk to you about when white men throw a temper tantrum, which is basically what we're talking about. And one of those main time periods has to do with Reconstruction. And when I talk about Reconstruction, I'm not talking about when your third grader floods the bathroom and now you have to do some reconstruction in your house. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about examining the post-Civil War period, particularly after Reconstruction ended in the 1870s through the lens of the ideas we've discussed, specifically the concept of white supremacists aim to maintain this racial cultural purity. Okay, so we went from basically the Weimar Republic, and we jumped back, okay, about 50, 60 years. We went from Germany to America. Shout out to FBA. Somebody type FBA in the chat room. Somebody type FBA in the chat room. And all you immigrants, all you Black immigrants, I need you to listen up. So you see, your problem right now is you're arrogant. The problem that immigrants have is you're arrogant. You think you understand when you don't. I'm going to try to give you some history because, see, without us and without a true understanding of who we are and what we know and what has created our culture, you all are going to get folded up like some lawn chairs in the next 5, 10, 20 years. That's what's about to happen to you because Black Americans are pulling back their cover. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. And I'm gonna have another barn burner for y'all on Monday. We're gonna keep this going, but now let's learn something. Somebody type learn something in the chat room. When we talk about post-Reconstruction, when we examine the post-Civil War period, particularly after Reconstruction ended in the 1870s. All right, we got to talk about white supremacy. We got to talk about racial purity. Okay, we want to provide some insight into the motivations behind these wing nuts in hoods called the KKK and the implementation of the Jim Crow laws. After the Civil War, the Southern states faced challenges. All right, they had to deal with all these free Black people who that they were not prepared to deal with at all. Now, Reconstruction is something that lasted from 1865 to 1877. It was a period where the federal government at the end of Reconstruction in 1877, the Northern troops that were keeping the peace down south and keeping the former Confederates at bay, they withdrew. They went back north. They went back to Boston. They went back to wherever they came from. They got out the South. And what that did was it left Black Americans vulnerable to white supremacist attacks. And what you had was a resurgence of white supremacy. White Southerners, they'd had to deal with the humiliation for 11 years. They were determined to reassert their white dominance. And they initiated violence and legal measures to suppress Black and civil rights and maintain this racial hierarchy. You see what I mean? That was the rise of the KKK. They showed up right after the Civil War ended in 1865. And they became violent and they acted as terrorists. The state and local authorities enacted local laws and they codified racial segregation. And from the perspective of a white supremacist, Black American represented a threat to their control, to their power, to their authority, to their racial purity. Because now guess what? White woman could go be with a Black man if she wanted to. Black man could go be with a white woman. I'm sure we know anything about European history. It was some gay stuff going on. On top, you had interracial mixing, miscegenation. Okay, you had everything that brings about white rage. You understand? They literally wanted to stop these white and Black relationships. Black cultural expressions and social integration challenged the racial hierarchy. It prompted efforts to suppress Black cultural autonomy and you had the genetic and biological. Are we seeing the same line? You see what we're talking about? We seeing the same, damn, this is the same stuff. Okay. See, they mad at Latinos right now. You think that? You got white Latinos saying, I'm white. And they're like, no, you're not. You are non-white, white Latino, a non-white, they're afraid. It's the same stuff, the race mixing. Why the fears? Because they want to be able to maintain white supremacy, and it requires the suppression of the Black political and social power. This is, we talk about Reconstruction. They believe that any mixing would weaken the superior white race. What they believe is any mixing is going to cause for them to begin to disappear and be bred out. That's at the crux. And I'm not talking about all white people. I'm just talking to white folks that subscribe to this foolish concept, this brainwashing. And so guess what happened? The terror attacks against Black folk. Okay? You see what I'm saying? Even the white allies, they reinforced the racial boundaries to intimidate Black Americans from asserting their rights. You see? This is very similar to what the Yahtzees did. Both of them were based on pseudo-scientific ideas about race and biology just to justify the violence and segregation. Both aimed to prevent mixing, whether cultural, social, or biological. You know, it was a time where if you went to a concert, the Black folk had to sit on one side and the white folk had to sit on one side. That's how serious these people were. They wouldn't even let you come in the front door to walk past white people when you would go to a concert where a Black person was singing or performing. Okay? And so the post-Reconstruction era, you had these white supremacist backlash. You know, it could be understood through the same lens as the Yahtzee party. It was even driven by fear. You see? The same fear, racial, cultural, biological dilution. These white Southerners were motivated by their racist beliefs, and they wanted to enforce this racial segregation and suppress Black political. There was a time when we had vast amounts of land. I want you all to understand something. Matter of fact, let's check this video footage, y'all. Y'all hit the #1 button, and we're going to talk about it, okay? We're going to talk about it. Hit the #1 button. Everybody in the chat room, let me know if you can hear this clearly. We're talking about Reconstruction. Check this out.
Carolina is a city known for its picturesque waterfront and rich history, but beneath the surface lies a dark and violent past. In 1898, Wilmington was the site of one of the most brutal acts of racial.
1898, this is right after Reconstruction ended. Well, not right after, but Reconstruction ended in 1977. Listen, this is what they did. You immigrants who swear up and down, all you got to do is work harder. We did work hard. We've always worked hard. And they came in and tore our stuff down out of jealousy. Black people had land, we had farms, we had money, we had wealth, we had our own towns. This is what white folk did.
mic on fire.
Black father, I have black son.
Tune in, weekly feeling inspired. From the heart, real talking night. Every episode brings the light. Subscribe, hit the like, won't you dare. Share the love, you know it's family. Join us every week, don't be late. Drop some coins in the collection plate. Drop some coins, enjoy the ride. Come say hi, catch the wave, don't pass by. Lifted spirits always in sight. In this podcast, joy takes flight. Subscribe, hit the like, won't you dare. Share the love, you know it's fair. Join us every week, don't be late. Drop some coins in the collection plate. Drop some coins.
Donation. I thought it was a class.
Hey man, I'll do what I do.
You know that.
Your ass class, don't come over here. You tall black motherfucker. Women up inside. I don't give a fuck about